Good morning, my brothers and sisters. Welcome to episode number 34, a wonderful passage today. We're going to find that, I'm going to title this, We're Sheltered and Shepherded by His Presence. Now, here's the thing. There's no shepherding. There's no fuzzy stuff with God. There's no being sheltered by God. Without His accomplishment and His authority and His proven might that He's had to do some knocking of things down in the heavenly realms, but then we get His sheltering and His shepherding and most beautifully wiping away tears. But there's no sheltering without conquering. There's no shepherding without destroying all that stands against Him. There's no wiping of tears without the destruction of evil and death. So the comfort of the sheltering and the shepherding and the wiping of tears is earned. It's backed by the power and authority that He brings to bear. So we see this iron fist of God, but we feel His velvet glove. The velvet glove of God is made possible by His power. So this tender presence that we're going to hear about today is empowered by actions of iron and saving and bringing people out of the pit. So this power and life-giving and taking and giving of blood makes possible His sheltering and shepherding and the stuff that is so wonderful to hear. We're going to hear about His intimacy and His presence, and it's backed by some real powerful things. Listen for 4 things in today's passage. Number 1, He washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. Number 2, He who sits on the throne will shelter them with His presence. Number 3, the Lamb in the midst of the throne will be their shepherd. And number 4, He will wipe away every tear. Here we go. This is from Revelation chapter 7, verse 9. After this I looked, and behold, a great multitude that no one could number, from every nation, from all the tribes and peoples and languages, standing before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed in white robes, with palm branches in their hands, and crying out with a loud voice, "Salvation belongs to our God who sits on the throne and to the Lamb." And all the angels were standing around the throne and around the elders and the 4 living creatures, and they fell on their faces before the throne and worshiped God, saying, "Amen. Blessing and glory and wisdom and thanksgiving and honor and power and might be to our God forever and ever." Then one of the elders addressed me, saying, "Who are these clothed in white robes, and from where have they come?" I said to him, "Sir, you know." And he said to me, "These are the ones coming out of the great tribulation. They have washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. Therefore they are before the throne of God. They serve Him day and night in His temple, and He who sits on the throne will shelter them with His presence. They shall hunger no more, neither thirst any more. The sun shall not strike them, nor any scorching heat. For the Lamb in the midst of the throne will be their shepherd, and He will guide them to springs of living water, and God will wipe away every tear from their eyes." So in this passage, God is bringing forth Jews, that was in the first half of chapter 7, and Gentiles to belief. All of them are new believers if the pre-tribulation theory is correct, and the church has already left the church. So these are new believers that God is bringing from the Jews and from the Gentiles. They're coming out of the tribulation, and they're being rewarded with a white robe. It's a term for coming to belief. So how do you become a Christian? Well, you believe, you entrust yourself to Him. Well, here's another word for it. Washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. That's how you get saved. It's an association with Jesus and the Lamb and the sacrifice and the substitution and, unfortunately, blood. It's a life for a life. So you have red bled blood for a white robe. And then we find the God who sits on the throne will shelter them with His presence. It's so beautiful. And God pitches His tent and encamps around new believers, and He takes up residence there. So His residence, this ultimate shepherd, gives His ultimate presence, and then, these people have peace and are waving palm branches. Now, that doesn't mean you're not martyred, because in chapter of the 5th seal, in the previous chapter 6, even believers, bad things sometimes happen to them. That doesn't mean that He wasn't with His presence and His peace and His shelter, and maybe most of all in those bad circumstances. So what a beautiful thing that He's going to shelter us with His presence. And then the second character here, the Lamb in the midst of the throne will be their shepherd. So you have more of the same. The Lamb is the one sacrificed to you, indicative of him being on the throne and having power and authority and might and honor and glory. The Lamb is sitting here in this worship central throne room area, and with majesty, but also intimacy and accessibility. We sense his shepherding and his guiding and his presence. God the Father is sheltering us with his presence, and God the Son is shepherding us with his presence. And then for the Lamb in the midst of the throne will be a shepherd. He will guide them to springs of living water, and God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. What's there to cry about? Why are we crying in this world? Well, divorce, rebellion, ICUs, moving to Alzheimer's facilities, cancer news, chronic unbelief, immorality. There's all kinds of things to be crying about now. And I look forward to, and I know you do too, to the day when every tear will be wiped. So he's this tear wiper in the midst of us, sheltered by his presence. And this is all predicated by all the things he's done with the authority and the power of being on the throne. His shepherding is based on the authority of the throne. So yes, he shows up. There'd be no sheltering without these abilities. There'd be no shepherding without the accomplishment. No sheltering, no conquering. No shepherding without destroying all that stands against him. And no wiping of tears without the destruction and the ultimate end of evil, death, and all those that oppose him. So the comforts of the sheltering and the shepherding and the wiping of tears is earned by this right and power and authority and bringing to nothing the powers that oppose him. It's this fist of God in a velvet glove for us. So my prayer today for you is, may he shelter you with his presence. May he shepherd you. May he guide you. And yes, may he wipe away every tear. Thanks for listening.